Welcome to the Ethics Guild podcast, where we explore human experiences. You probably ask yourself, in today's era, why an entry-level job requires a high educational background, high achievement, experience? What does entry-level really mean today that was different 20 years ago? We're also going to touch base on what does being overqualified for a job is. What does that mean? Where did it come from? A lot of these stigmas come from a retaliation to filter actors and not leaders. Should you be punished for knowing more if you decide to look for a job with less responsibility? Who is setting up these rules and why? We are going to dismantle the invisible psychological architectures of the modern workplace, human resources, which is the gatekeeper, following orders from those above, and how does it affect your human truth, your life, your career. To start, we have to understand that we live in a crisis of character and competence, and we also have to understand the very system designed to find the best quote-unquote talent, teams, leaders, etc. And understanding these filters, we understand that they have become sophisticated filters for compliance rather than capability. How much did this influence leadership and mentorship in a place of work? Could this bring the psychological erosion in the work? Because if you hire an actor, not a leader, what is leading you? Is an actor going to have your best interest as they act only for themselves and not for you? This is why we see the corruption of an entry-level standard and the dangerous preference for actors over leaders. But we should ask ourselves, why actors? Because actors can fool you. They will put on the performance to save their skin. Leaders don't act that way. They act with integrity and they move forward together. I want you to think, if you are in a position at work where you feel stuck, where you feel like you're not moving, you're not growing, you haven't grown in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, this episode is for you. You need to understand why you're not moving, why you're stuck in the system, why as hard as you try, your act is not good enough for a promotion. So to understand this, let's start with the persona filter. Why we hire actors, not leaders. In the modern corporate theater, the interview has shifted from a technical assessment to a performance piece. We have created a system that rewards the right quote-unquote person, the polished, the high energy, the loud, the extrovert. And we applaud even better if they're yes-saying. These kind of individuals are the ones that are being targeted for these leadership positions, while often filtering out the resilient, the solution-oriented, the creative, and the truly competent. The one that seeks to understand, but with the intention of growing with their team and challenging whatever is impeding them to do their job well, as they protect the well-being of their own leaders and their team. What is the big problem is that HR prioritizes cultural fit, a term that has become a psychological euphemism for lack of friction. Let's think about what lack of friction will do to us. If we are not challenged because the diversity of criteria, beliefs are not there, that all that we will find is compliance, obedience, the same. And why is that? Because HR is looking for candidates who mirror their own behaviors and biases. And this is how they're led to hire people. Think about it. If you hire somebody with the same biases, it avoids conflictiveness or conflictions, but it demotes challenges. It demotes the ability to adapt to new ideas, new concepts. It narrows the mind to think that they only have to associate with what they're comfortable with. And that is very destructive. This is very common to see that HR hires for impression management. Someone with a nice smile, someone with beauty in most cases, somebody that's charismatic on the outside. And to make matters worse, they know what storytelling tropes to use to trigger a connection, an emotional hit in the inner. Literally, they study their way in, but never study the lives that they're going to impact once they are in there, leading projects, people, and goals. When we hire for persona over competence, we signal to the existing team that their hard work, their hard-won results matter less than their ability to perform a script. This is why a lot of employees stop believing in the chain of command. They stop believing that they have an opportunity and a chance, because deep inside they know they're different, and that difference separates them from the possibilities of growth. And this is why a lot of people bounce around from job to job until they find quote unquote the cultural fit for them. But what does this create? It creates cognitive dissonance, especially for high performers. They see a leader hired who doesn't have it. They lack the grit to fight for the team, but has the charisma to win a board meeting, to be liked at the management sessions. How does that help these subordinates? We have to check the reality of the fit in today's era. There is interview bias, which is discriminatory. Subjective judgments lead to a 10% systemic loss in talent, quality at scale. And why? Why are we talking about the charisma trap? Let's remember back in 2001 in the collapse of Enron, which should serve us as the ultimate warning. Their leadership was famous for hiring the smartest people in the room. They came from every prestigious university and companies. It was all about based on academic prestige and high-stake performance. But yet they lacked the ethical resilience, value, moral, and practical competency to handle reality, especially when they had to face it. Choosing instead to maintain a facade of success through deception. What I'm trying to say here is that people that have a persona filter will lie at any cost to maintain the status quo because they don't want to see that tainted in their resume. So what am I proposing to change this outcome of incompetent leaders in our corporations, in our government? We have to start moving from this whole tell me a story about your success in a place of work. Tell me, how did you move this KPI? How did you inspire your team? How do you inspire yourself? Stories, which are all metrics, KPI driven simulations. It's all about the number. We must replace how did you handle conflict, and be honest with yourself. Are you always telling the truth when they ask you these questions? And we need to replace these questions with, here's a scenario, here's a data set and a failing project. Show us the three first moves you take to stabilize the team. We need to stop interviewing for the memory or to listen to what we want to hear, and we need to start interviewing for the present of a skill, criteria, values, morals, and ethics, because that's exactly what your team is going to see day by day when you hire a leader. Well, I'll leave you with this question. Were you able to be yourself when you got interviewed for your job? Were you 100% honest with all your answers? And did your interviewer challenge you to not only make you feel comfortable and bring down your guard, but also were they okay with you being who you really are? This leads me to also thinking about what has led us to many conflicts with interview. The credential inflation. Theory versus the better scared truth, or in this case, experience. Why are we undermining experience over academic achievement? Also, why is it so underpaid? This is what's causing this era of high standards for entry-level jobs. And it has been corrupted by human resources corporations that believe they can do whatever they want. Because think about this. We see, and for those that are in link, please, this is for you because you are in a position of leadership. We're starting to see entry-level postings requiring 3 to 5 years of experience and a master's degree. What are we trying to achieve with this? Isn't this elitism? Why are we overvaluing academic achievement, which is a largely measure of theoretical compliance? While we're undervaluing life or lived experiences, should you not give credit to a single mother that works 2 jobs and put their daughters into college? Isn't that true leadership? Solution orientation, time management, dedication, resilience, punctuality, determination, teamwork, and so many other skills put into one basket that we undermine. Isn't the experience of that single mother that has to sacrifice so much more than someone that just knows the theory but not the practice? I will give you an example of this. In my times of management, I remember seeing people with master's degree, bachelor's, and including PhDs that had no experience at the workplace. And yet, when they came in, they were just like a new hire with no degree. They didn't know any better. They had to be trained to understand what their work looked like every day. It's not like they came in knowing what to do 100%. They had to learn this. Everyone has to go through a process of learning, no matter if you have the diploma or not. Anyone can be trained to do a job well if given the chance. Experience is the potent mixture of theory, practice, and the most important, the psychological scars of failure. When we are okay with failure. We understand what it takes to grow. And when we understand what it takes to grow, we become solution oriented. We prioritize through our emotional scar to always reason to find the end of the tunnel and educate those coming to not make the same mistakes. This is how mentorship is created. I'm not trying to put down academic achievement because it's also important because it forms a criteria. It makes you think. But what is our schools designed for? It's designed for you to pass. And it doesn't matter how you pass, either learning or cheating. They don't teach you what a leadership environment really looks like, which should teach you how to bleed for your team's win, how to earn their trust, and how to become one with your team. Genuinely, we're seeing the psychological impact of lack of leadership at the workplace. You're loving the Ethics Guild podcast? Don't want to miss any new episodes? Want to be part of our panel and be our guest? Subscribe, leave us a comment, like, be part of the community of the Ethics Guild podcast. We need more people like you. We need people that are brave, to speak up for what's right, to stand for justice and dignity. Become one of us. Be part of the Ethics Guild podcast community, and let's journal to endless possibility where we all become one. Don't forget, subscribe.